Mark Baratelia steadying himself! A star in the making. And there's the only goal! Sabini with it! After 11 years, once again, Milan are the champions of Italy.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie Sitdown, World Football Index's podcast for your Calcio to go. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing on this Wednesday night? Or wasn't it, right?
We're still doing Wednesdays, man. I'm actually kind of getting comfortable with it.
We're in Champions League mode, so it's okay.
Yeah, we might want to do the next couple Wednesdays with Champions League games still to try to filter through. So
there you go.
We might be settled in here on a Wednesday night here for a little while, folks. So tune in and sit back and enjoy it. But yeah, it's been a pretty good week. The Calcio, certainly no shortage of goals and some bangers this time around. So the Calcio gods were good to us and gave us plenty of treats on the goal front. Some great games this weekend. MilanAtalanta was certainly a pivotal game. A reversal of fortunes for the two Roman sides, and we have the Derby della Mole, which was probably one of the more entertaining of their in their history. So certainly a lot to like as far as that was concerned. So there was a lot going on. I can officially declare to everybody here, because this is something that I have gotten some shtick for, over the years, Richard. Me being a Milan fan, and then my son getting into the Calcio streets and picking Juve as his team. Back when he admired Della, and then obviously that accelerated when Cristiano Ronaldo. But as the saying goes, he's a boy. He didn't know. Cut him some slack. So. I can officially assert that, and I made this declaration in the chat on Monday night on Milan Weekly Podcast, that my son is Milanisti.
Okay.
So he supports Milan now, and his reasons for jumping off the Juve bandwagon and jumping on the Milan bandwagon is simple. I don't want to support a club that cheats.
About that time.
Yeah.
Father of the Year right here. I love it.
Hey, he came to his senses and he got on the good he got with the good guys. So he says he's still going to keep his Ronaldo Juve jersey. I don't care about that. That's fine. So, full disclosure, I'm not afraid to admit I've got Juve jerseys from the 90s. Tucked away in my totes.
To be fair, that Ronaldo jersey probably cost a pretty penny too, so you don't want to just throw it out, right? It's exactly. Not fiscally responsible. So
exactly, mine's the Sony mini disc that had the mesh on the sides,
yeah.
So that had the mesh on the sides, and it was at a time when they had that's when they had Zidane and Del Piero and Deschamps. You turned him to the devil. Shame my. I'm glad you talked him off, Juventus. I didn't really talk him off. I just told him the story of what was going on and why they were docked 15 points. And he says,
"Let me tell you the story about Calciopoli here, son. Sit on my lap."
Yep. And they said, "Well, he wasn't around for that." So,
that's right.
So in any event, that's a happy occasion. And it was his birthday yesterday. Well, sometime between yesterday and today, because he's a leap day baby. So,
okay.
So I thought I'd share the news in the midst of that. Double ones for him. So.
Double down.
Did your son is that your son's first DC United game this weekend?
No. He went when he was a baby. It was the first time him and I went alone. So yeah, we had a good time. It was freezing cold, frigid. It was in the low 30s in the game, but he enjoyed the game. Late start for the game there, but he definitely enjoyed. Wants to go back. So that's a win in my column, because anytime I can get into like soccer / football, that's a win. So it's good. Good.
You're raising him right. So that's the important part. So,
right.
So we're getting into talking about our kids early here in the podcast, because you can see we've got a pretty light show for you here. We're going to go through match week 24 in a batch. We understand that there were some important games there. We'll highlight those in pretty big detail. We also want to get into some conversation about the stadium situation in Milan. Milan has an idea of where they want to have their stadium. Inter has an idea of where they want to have their stadium. I don't think either of them are telling the mayor of Milan where exactly they want to plot land here. So, and good for them. I wouldn't either, because then the mayor of Milan will probably do something crazy like just take that land and do it for some other development, and then we're starting all over again.
Yep, he's done it
before.
before.
The Europa League and the Conference League draws, we'll just touch on that a little bit after all. And hey, we haven't been on since last Wednesday, Richard. All 4 teams from the Europa League and Conference League go through. All 3 Serie A teams hold an advantage in the Champions League. So great time to be a fan of the Calcio, as we say. And we'll top it all off with a little Who Won Calcio Twitter. And this week's Who Won Calcio Twitter, Richard, it's more quality than quantity. So
not a bad thing. Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing. We only have 4 nominations, but you and I think you know what mine's going to be. Yeah. My pick is going to be, but we won't spoil it for the good people out there that are checking us out. If you are watching us here live on the YouTube channel, check in with us in the chat. Let us know that you're there. Say hi. Do whatever you want. If you've got a question, drop a question. Drop a like. That's more important. And if you are watching for the first time and are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And that notification bell, because you'll always be notified when we go live on the air. We just drop a random video. So let's get on with it. We'll talk about match week 24. Everything began with Empoli and Napoli on Saturday. Napoli winning 2-0. Ardian Ismaili with a own goal in the 17th minute. Victor Osimhen in the 28th minute. What else is new? Scoring yet again and just running away with Capo Canonieri. The win was soured a little bit by Mario Rui getting a straight red card for violent conduct there in the 67th minute. It was originally a yellow, and they went to VAR and changed it. Good use of VAR for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot more aggressive calls that weren't called. I can see why they gave him a red. But yeah, I guess good use. I mean, anytime it's a situation where it could be a suspect play, a suspicious play, you want to use it. So I think, yes, it was right as a right call to go to VAR. I don't necessarily agree with the call, but yeah, either way, Rui did it to himself.
Yep, indeed. So 2-0 there for Napoli over Empoli. It was a homecoming of sorts there for the manager too, Luciano Spalletti. This was all Napoli though. 19-9 on shots, 6 on target, 54% possession. They controlled the game as we would expect. Lecce and Sassuolo. It was Sassuolo with possession. It was Lecce with a lot of the chances, but Lecce didn't have accurate enough shooting. But 16 shots with none on target, Richard. Yeah. For Sassuolo. Only 3 shots on target for Sassuolo, but lucky for them, one of them went in, and it was Christian Torstvedt, who came on as a sub in the 61st minute. 4 minutes later, he scores. He's played in by Domenico Berardi for the goal to give Sassuolo a precious 3 points and pull them further and further away from the drop. They're getting safer as we go. They're on a nice little run here. 10 points in their last 5 matches. So certainly the kind of form that's going to pull you out of trouble. So Sassuolo getting the win away at Lecce, which is not easy to do. So getting into Sunday's games, Bologna away just seems to be a fixture that Inter lose every year. They did it again. This time they did not have Radu in goal to blame.
Yep.
Chance, basically a generally balanced game here, Richard. But it was Bologna who would come away with the win. Ricardo Orsolini, man, this kid's in form, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
He is the difference. And boy, the job Thiago Motta is doing. You have Inter Twitter with pictures of Thiago Motta now saying, "Make it happen."
He did.
Yeah, he did. He made it happen
for his team, not for his former team.
If you can't beat him, make him your new coach, right? So we'll see how that progresses and if that even progresses. But boy, very impressive job that Thiago Motta has done, bringing Bologna all the way to 8th now on a heck of a run here. In fact, Salernitana and Monza, a 3-0 win for Salernitana, a vital win for them in their bid to avoid the drop. Lassana Koulibaly with a goal of the week candidate there in the 52nd minute. Beautiful curling goal there. It was Grigoris Castanos in the 65th, Antonio Candreva in the 71st, Giulio Donati with a deliberate handball there in the 87th minute, getting sent off. It was actually his second yellow and then getting sent off. So critical 3 points there for Salernitana and their bid to avoid the drop. As I said, Udinese and Spezia playing to a 2-2 draw. Precious point here for Udinese. The scoring opens with Mbala and Zola. It is matched by Beto in the 22nd minute. Second half, Roberto Pereira played in by Sandi Lovric in the 55th minute. Lovric is going to probably end up finding some work at a better club here soon.
He should.
Yep. And then Nzola bracing in the 72nd minute here, making it 2-2. And then the last game on Sunday was Milan and Atalanta. And talk about making somebody look ordinary. That is exactly what Milan did in a 2-0 win over Della. It started with an own goal by Juan Musso, but let's face it, that was a cracker there by Teo Hernandez.
Yeah.
Would have been in the conversation for the goal of the week if it didn't hit off of Musso's ass and go in. But nonetheless, it was an own goal. And then the game is sealed in the 86th minute. Junior Messias from Leao to win the game 2-0. This Milan defense now, Richard, this is another level. This is an Atalanta team we're talking about that have the attackers, that have the power. They have 42 goals in 24 games, and they only had 3 shots in this game.
0 on target.
With none on target. Comfortable as it can be for Mike Maignan in his return. I assume that's where you want to start here out of these 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Milan's defense has been playing a lot better over the last whatever games that Malik Chow has started, right? But it's funny, and I remember Sergey Doing on Twitter mentioned this, like the impact that one person, Mike Maignan, has. He comes into the lineup, and this team is back to playing stellar defense all of a sudden.
Yep.
They're playing a high line. They're willing to take chances. At least what I saw is the back 3 were very complimentary of each other. They were able to rotate position to confuse the attack for Atalanta as well. So Malik Chow was mostly in the center with Tamori and Kulul on either side primarily. But, I mean, stellar defensively, gave up nothing. Allowed Teo Hernandez to push up, and not only push up, but play like more a centralized role, which we rarely see him play. You saw good combination work between Leao and Giroud early on that, we nearly had a couple goals by both of them. They both missed the goals, but a team performance, team defensively, this is one of the best performances we've seen in a while defensively from them. I mean, to hold a team like Atalanta to 0 shots on goal, the impact that Mike Maignan brings instantly gives Milan an advantage going into their Champions League encounter in the second leg with Tottenham. Yep. But I can't say enough things about what Malik Chow has done since he's arrived, and then Kalulu and Tamori as a 3-man pairing just played so well. They got the pace, and I understand why they went with those 3 because, Atalanta have pace on the attack, especially Højlund. Højlund is a fantastic guy. Lookman is very fast as well. Boga, when he comes off the bench, is fast. And all 3 of those guys can keep up with him for the most part, especially Kalulu and Tamori. But Malik Chow is not is no slouch either. So excellent performance overall. And yeah, it's a statement by Milan saying, hey, don't forget about us. We're still going to be there for the second place, hunt. Maybe not Scudetto, but second place.
Probably for second, yeah. Don't get crazy here. As much as I'd love to see it. I think that, okay, if you follow SofaScore for ratings, I'm going to just give you friendly advice and say follow someone else for ratings. They give Olivier Giroud a 6.3, which I thought was ridiculous. And I think the 6.3 really comes because he should have scored twice in this game.
Yes.
He had great chances, and, they're very harsh on big chances missed for whatever reason. And then they don't look at the balance of the game. But, we talked about at the beginning of the transition to this 3-4-2-1 setup that the player that was struggling the most with it was Olivier Giroud in terms of making some adjustments, in terms of movement off the ball, where he positions himself, how he plays off of things and stuff like that. This was by leaps and bounds his best game since the switch to that formation, and now a matter of time before the goals come with a little more frequency.
Yeah, and I think what also we're seeing is that not only Olivier Giroud adapted to this new formation, I think we've seen Leao starting to wake up, and maybe he's not getting the goals, but he surely got an assist, right? Junior Messias missed a wide open goal, basically. I think this is the best game I've seen from Leao in terms of good plays versus errors. And he kind of cleaned up the errors in this game. I think he and Giroud had really good chemistry early on, and he was finding him. They're finding each other. And yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, Leao was doing well, and Giroud, well, he missed a couple of easy goals. He kind of set up the Teo goal that, the Musa own goal, whatever, with a beautiful header back. Good hold up play, good vision as well. Not only trying to find Leao, but he, finding Diaz and other guys that made the attack as well. So good game for both those players, and I think you're going to start seeing both of them start playing more and more, much better. And when Mike Magnon's back, it's just infectious for the whole team to just start playing better all of a sudden, because there's the one less worry they have to have now because they got a goalie that can stop everything. So yeah, it's I think it's a trend upwards with Milan, and a lot of credits got to go to Pioli because said if he can come out of this, Milan tend to, when they go on these regressive streaks, they come out with long winning streaks or long unbeaten streaks, and this could be the beginning of it. It's what, 4 games now in a row. So look out for them, and look out for Inter and anybody else trying to challenge for that second spot, because Milan mean business and are getting back into the groove of it just in time for second leg of Champions League. So
yeah, indeed. Last question on Milan, because I want to get to these other games.
Yeah.
Do you go to Tottenham and try to play a high line like they did today against Atalanta, or do you do you drop off and let them come?
You know what? I don't ever like going anywhere unless you have one of the worldly defenses that Milan doesn't have. That's the only time you drop back and try to say, hey, bring what you got, we'll play on the counterattack. And maybe Inter can get away with it, right? I want to see Milan play with, somewhat of a high line. They got to be smart about this, right? They got to watch who they got, because, I mean, the 3-man attack or even 4-man attack that Spurs have is lethal on the counter. So you have to be wary of that. But playing the 3 that they played in this last game, having Teo on the left, and then who do they have on the right? Maybe even Salamakers on the right. I probably have Salamakers in that game against the Spurs.
I would play Salamakers on against Spurs if he's available.
Purely in his work rate. I think what you have is a chance that you can bring all 5 of those guys back and really shut up shop, have Mike Magnon there as comfort, and then play on the counterattack and play fast and play with a high line at times. But they got to be smart in that game. But yeah, why not? I just don't like playing all out defense if you don't have the defense like a Juventus had maybe several years ago with BBC. So don't play with fire. I say just play your normal game, and it'll come.
Now let me ask you. Actually, I'm going to ask one more question, because this is kind of important here as it pertains to Milan with the game coming up against Fiorentina. I believe Leao is suspended.
Yes.
Yes. Who plays on the left? This was kind of debated a bit here on Milan Weekly Podcast on Monday. I said in the chat, I think it should be Rebic if he's available. I don't think we're ready for De Ketelaere and Diaz in the same lineup together. So, but what do you think?
Who are they playing again?
Fiorentina.
Honestly, I would say, I would rather have a fresh Rebic for the Champions League counter. So I say roll the dice, go with De Ketelaere. And if he's not doing well, pull him out at halftime or something like that. I would rather have a fresher Rebic for the Champions League, because you will need him if things get dicey. He's that kind of player that you need. And so why not give De Ketelaere a chance? He's played a lot better over the last several weeks. He's been getting closer and closer to the goal. He's starting getting confidence now. You saw that in the game where he came on as a substitute last game. Try to go one-on-one in the box. That's what we want to see, at least. If he's not going to, he had the obvious pass to Zlatan, but confidence tells me he's trying to go one-on-one against the defender. And we saw that. He didn't get it, but he went after it. So he's getting better, and I give him a chance. Give him some minutes, see what he can do. And, hey, worst case scenario, he doesn't do well, you bring on Rebic. Best case, he scores a goal and gets confidence, and then you got another talented player you can add to the mix there. So play him. Let's go crazy.
Yeah, and the silver lining to Leao being suspended for Fiorentina is he'll be fresh for Tottenham. So let's look at some of these other games. Inter.
Hmm.
Eduardo, what is it about going to the Della? I mean, it's. I just, I'm, it's mystifying. Or maybe Bologna is just pretty good now, and probably need to have a little bit more respect for what they've been able to do here in recent times. I'm probably being a little harsh. Bologna won 2-1 last year, obviously, as the game with Radu, and that probably cost into the
Yeah.
title. Inter narrowly won at Bologna in 2021. That was actually on their way to the Scudetto. And then 2-1. So probably being a little bit harsh here. Some narrow scraps here, but for the second straight year, they lose at Bologna. Was this a poor Inter, or was this a good Bologna?
A little bit of both. I tend to give more credit to Bologna than screaming at Inter. The rain certainly didn't help Inter in any situation there. I just think Bologna wanted it more, and it's a cheesy cliche you'll hear in sports, but I think it was a fact. I think of the two teams, it was a fairly balanced matchup. But what we saw, the most dangerous plays came from Bologna.
Yep.
Onana came up big in this game. If Onana isn't in goal, you'll probably see a couple more goals conceded. Inter had their moments for sure. They had some slip-ups, like Çalhanoğlu had a wide-open chance in front of the goal where he slipped and ball goes over the bar. A couple other instances like that. Skorupski, he had to make some saves as well. But I'm going to give credit to Bologna because I think they're on a roll right now. Orsolini's hot at the moment. Thiago Motta has brought this team. We have said for years with this team, they're talented but massively underachieving, right? Them, Fiorentina, and a couple others, right? And finally, Thiago Motta is getting the best out of his men. Even without Arnautovic, they're looking really well, right? Musa Barra scored a goal early in the game and got taken away because of, I think it was offsides it was or something. I can't remember. They look good. They look good. They're not reliant on one person, which is Arnautovic. They're figuring out how to play. They're playing as a team. They're playing well on the counterattack, and they caught Inter. They really did. And that Orsolini goal was a great example of it. It's a counterattack. Everyone thinks they're going to Musa Barra on the left-hand side, and you see Orsolini cutting up the middle, and he finds a perfect pass to him. I mean, granted, it's a great play by the defender to give it to him. And he took it in stride and slammed it home. And so you got to give Bologna credit and Thiago Motta credit for getting this game plan perfect in this game. Inter had their moments, and they certainly, they could have scored themselves. But I think of the two teams, the way they performed this game, I think Bologna deserved to win in this game. And everyone's saying that, Inter's going to run away with the second place position. Like, they're tied in points right now, so like they're struggling at the moment. And people want to blame Inzaghi, and I get it, but not all of it's on Inzaghi. Some of it's on the players, and also don't forget about the opponents. That's all I'm saying.
Barrow created a lot of discomfort for the back three for Inter, obviously, with the work that Orsolini did as well. But then I also think that low-key, a couple guys that I thought were really good on the pitch were, first of all, Yerdy Scouten in the midfield, covering ground and being able to blow things up. And John Lucumi is – I'll say this about him. I mean – when he first came into this team at Bologna, you watch him play and you're just like, there's not a whole lot to like about him. He's kind of mad, but I think he's playing a lot more comfortably. And then also having Joaquin Sousa next to him as the center back pairing there, it's been solid. Those guys had to cope with Romelu Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez and did their jobs. Romelu Lukaku and Martinez as a combination, they're going to get their chances. They're not going to go the entire game without creating things for themselves, each other, and for teammates. But they were held here, and I think that Lucumi and Sousa didn't overplay this game, and they made a combination like Lukaku and Lautaro. What I'm trying to say here is they made it hard for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to completely shut those two guys down. They're going to get their chances, but if you can make it difficult for them, you're going to give yourself a chance. And I think that they get a lot of credit for their part in Bologna's win.
And I think Gosens played really well as also for Inter. However, like
Hmm.
to your point, I think what we saw is yes, we knew those guys were going to get their chances. However, Bologna applied so much pressure to the Inter attackers that it forced them to make the passes just slightly off. Lukaku had a couple of chances where the ball was just slightly behind him. He took the shot, but Skorupski's there to make the save, and we kept seeing the passes just slightly off, and that's all due to the pressure that Bologna's defense created against Inter, forcing them to kind of rush these plays. Same thing with the Çalhanoğlu play I mentioned earlier. It just little things like that really, and that all goes down to coaching, right? That's Thiago Motta really saying this is when we press. This is the time to press, and I think Bologna nailed it defensively and really deserved his victory.
Yep. Napoli. I mean, they're just making it look way too easy right now. I mean, this is borderline astonishing. I mean, we're saying this about Napoli, and we're saying this about a Luciano Spalletti managed team, and we've said this. You said this last week. That many people have said this. That this is by far the most talented team Spalletti's had.
Yeah.
Which is part of the equation. Do you get concerned about a level of complacency? I think they win the tie. I'm not saying that they're going to fall back to the chasing pack. There's no chance. But do you see and we'll answer that question here in a minute, Fitcom. Do you see a scenario where some complacency sets in that just becomes a bad habit that carries over to their Champions League prospects? Because I think when I would look at all of these Champions League teams, I think they're live for even reaching the final. Why not them, right? But does the complacency from a big lead in the league start to set in, and those kind of things carry over, to their Champions League form?
I mean, we've seen it for Bayern for so many years, right? They've had super teams that blew away their leagues. And unless your team is managed by Jupp Heynckes or Hansi Flick, you don't finish the job because of that complacency. And this game against Empoli, yes, they won fairly comfortably, but I think there were moments in the game where they were complacent. Empoli had a little bit too much possession, had to create a little bit, couple opportunities on the that put Meret under duress. But for the most part, it was comfortable. It was easy. My fear with Napoli is that they continue to pull away. They clinched the league fairly early, and then feel like we won. Let's just play the youngsters or play a rotation, get out of our groove, and then when the Champions League come, not able to turn it back on, because that has happened with majority teams in Champions League, the ones that try to go for the deep runs. And so my thing is like Spalletti's job. I mean, the title is all but guaranteed at this point. He has to find a way to keep the team hungry, whether it's using the Champions League as a goal or whatever. Has to keep them playing almost a full starting 11 and with that intensity heading into Champions League. Because again, if they start slacking off and letting and they'll probably earn it, right, the slack off. But if they start letting a rotation happen and youngsters play, they will get out of the groove for Champions League, and they will have an early exit than we think, because it's a talented team that should go deep. But complacency is a bitch, and it's gotten the best of teams in Europe. So be wary.
To answer your question, I'm going to say match week 35. I think they clinch it with 3 games to go.
I think match week 30. But I don't. That's not using math at all. That's not using math at all whatsoever.
With 8 games to go, they're going to be. So you think that basically means you think at the end of match week 30, they will be 25 points clear of second.
They could. The teams below them have all been so inconsistent. Now, granted, Milan are on fire at the moment, and Roma and Lazio are there. Juventus is coming up. Atalanta and Inter have been right. But it's possible. The way these teams have been inconsistent, it is possible. They're 18 points at the moment in match week 24.
Yeah,
it's possible. 6 weeks ago, anything's possible. So
magic number is 89 points. They're currently on 65. So to get to 89. That would be match week 32, which is what Anthony said.
Okay.
I'm going to say 35. I think they come back just a little bit. But I don't think they clearly won't come back enough. And by the end of match week 35, there's still maybe a 10 or 11 point lead. over second, and they can cruise through their last 3 match weeks.
If they come out of this run right here with Lazio, Atalanta, Milan, and whoever is at the third match, and they win all 4 games, I mean, it doesn't matter at that point, right? I mean, mathematically, we know the 32 or whatever it is, mathematically, but I mean, there's no chance anybody's coming back. I mean, if anyone's going to come back at this moment, it's going to be one of the big clubs, Milan or Inter. But I don't see that at all. If they make it within 10 points, I'd be surprised, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with it. But I think it's like I said. I think it gets to 35. I think that they play some different people. They try to keep some people fresh. They drop some points. They here and there, but just because they're going to have the luxury to do so. But you see that complacency though in any sport. I mean, I would not necessarily call Gonzaga a complacent college basketball team. They have a great team. They play in a conference where there's maybe one other decent team. And they steamroll through that, and they have to play the majority of their season against teams like that. And then when it turns on and goes to the tournament and has to play somebody with a pulse, they, more often than not, they get bounced earlier than everybody expects. So, there is kind of that syndrome. An NFL team that clenches the division and home field advantage, and then they just coast over the last few weeks because they don't want to get anybody hurt. And then the first round of the divisional playoffs, they go out to the wild card team that got hot at the right time.
Well, I would even say, look at the Patriots in 2007, right? They went undefeated, and they had complacency at the end of the season where they started barely winning games, and it came down to the final game. The team was hungry, and they beat them. It's complacency. So it happens. It gets the best of us. And so
in short, Napoli's worst enemy right now is themselves. We're going to get to a Who Won Calcio Twitter entry that kind of, where we can sit there and say that Napoli's biggest rival is themselves at this point. And I think that that's probably the best way to describe that. We had some bottom half games, games featuring some bottom half teams, Richard, within this, and we can probably put them all in a nice little bundle here. We talked about the critical win here for Sassuolo. Getting Domenico Berardi back into the fold was a big help. Lecce dropping points again. I don't think they have to be terribly concerned. I think they put on a pretty good campaign. I saw some very good shouts today on Twitter. Michael Lisi among them, talking about Falcone maybe being one of the 3 best goalkeepers in Serie A this season, despite not getting it over the line here against Sassuolo this week. And then Salernitana with a critical 3 points against Monza. So some of these teams, and then Spezia even grabbing a point at Udinese, some of these teams that could be relegation threatened. If we're talking about Hellas Verona possibly getting out, Sampdoria pulling off some kind of miracle, the teams that would be the most threatened came away with points this weekend that could prove huge.
Yeah, the only ones that didn't get points were Hellas, right? I think Sassuolo did well in their game. I think Lecce was certainly the team that put the onus on the attack more than anybody else, more than Sassuolo did. They just couldn't get it on dang target. And Sassuolo took advantage of it and got the win. And then with Salernitana, what we saw is, again, we mentioned Falcone being one of the best goalkeepers of the league. Ochoa, second half of the season, has been one of the best goalkeepers in the league as well. Yeah. Really helping Salernitana kind of get away from the relegation spots. Came up huge in this game. They got some good players in there as well. I mean, Koulibaly is a player who's quietly been very good. Castano has had a really nice goal there. Candreva has always been the player who always seems to do well no matter where he goes, right? And this is not a bad Monza team. It's a team that's been pretty hot. They won, 8-9 games in a row before they lost to Milan. And so it's still a pretty good team. And Salernitana needed this win, and they got it. Give them a little cushion there. And then Spezia, they've the little engine that could. They're fighting. They're fighting against Udinese. Udinese had the lead. Nzola is quietly, a player that should be mentioned with some of the best players in the league this year. I mean, 11 goals on a lowly Spezia team is pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
Only a couple guys have more goals than him, and I'm talking about Lookman and obviously Osimhen. So Nzola deserves a lot of credit for Spezia's play and staying out of relegation. How longer can they survive that? I don't know, but they got the point. It's a big point against Udinese. So kudos to them at the bottom there. The teams, like you said, that needed the points, they got it outside of Hellas. So
I was thinking about, okay, if Nzola moves on from Spezia and stays in Serie, we always like to do this with players. Whether they're in whether an Italian player in another league. We talked about this with Jorginho, and apparently he's going to be at Arsenal for a while now. If he was to find where would he be a great fit in his next destination? The obvious answer, and I'll go first on this. The obvious answer would be a reunion with Italiano at Fiorentina.
Oh, okay.
Cabral now starting to score again for Fiorentina is helping them. Between Monday's game, which we'll talk about, and then also his performances in the Conference League too. So that would be a good one. I wouldn't hate to see him at Milan with his power, with his pace, and and things like that, and bringing a totally different dynamic. Milan's already got so much invested into strikers right now that they just probably couldn't afford it without weakening another position. I would say out of this, I would say Fiorentina would be amazing to see a reunion with Italiano. The only other place I would probably see is Roma, but Roma have Belotti and not Belotti. I mean, I'm talking not like Belotti, Torino Belotti.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Abraham and then Belotti. So if he was to stay in Serie A, where would you like to see him make his next move?
I mean, obviously, a place like Milan would be good for a guy like him or Beto, right? Just because what they can bring there. But I mean, I hear your Roma shot, and I don't hate that. I think as a backup to Abraham would be good. Look on the other side of the city. I think Lazio is also a good option too. I mean, Immobile is obviously the main guy, but he can't do it all, and it'd be good to have some depth on that team. Imagine if they could figure out a way to get two strikers in that system with the wings that they have, and Luis Alberto and SMS. Another team I would think is and this is not a team that's in the top 6, but you mentioned Fiorentina, and I'm going to go Bologna. Arnautovic, he is probably due for a move to the Premier League anytime soon or somewhere else. They could use a powerful striker in the middle to go along with Musa Barrow and Orsolini and company. It would be really complement Thiago Motta's if Thiago Motta stays, assuming, right? It'd be really good for his style as well. So I think, those are some shots I think that would serve Nzola well. I want to see him in the league because he's obviously a good player. I hate to see the Angolese player leave the league. You hate to see talent leave the league, but those are probably some of the spots I would look at myself if I thought he would fit somewhere in the league.
Sassuolo too.
Don't forget Sassuolo.
Flanked by Berardi and Lorient. Good gravy. That could get sick.
I wouldn't say Atalanta, but the Atalanta they have too much.
They've got so many attackers. Although he would fit the profile of what they're looking for. I mean, he's. I'd say it's perfectly fair to compare him to someone like Duvan Zapata. So someone in that mold. Maybe not with the pedigree of Romelu Lukaku, but a lot of the physical characteristics. That's an interesting one. So he's been the bright spot on what's been a pretty ugly Spezia season so far. So a team that's just barely treading water right now to stay up, but they have 21 goals, and I think he has Spezia scored 21 goals in Serie A, and I think he has 13 of them?
11.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's João Pedro at Cagliari figures.
Or Marco Borriello.
Yep. And look at what happened to Cagliari last year. So,
sorry, George.
Yep. You start to George is in the chat too. I hated to bring that up. I didn't do that on purpose. I didn't do that. It's like George. It's not like I sat there and said, "Oh, George is in the chat. Let me stick it to him." So, anyway, but those were the first 6. How about there was weekday Calcio, Monday, Tuesday? Serie A got weird on us.
Yeah, trying to do some English schedule or something like that. But starting off, the aforementioned Hellas Verona were hosting Fiorentina. A big game for Hellas. Fiorentina to an extent, but mostly for Hellas, and they did not show up. Former lead man for them, Antonin Barak, scored an opening goal in the 12th minute, did not celebrate. Cabral doubled the lead in the 38th minute, nice goal off for set piece there. And then Biraghi, goal of the week, 89th minute. Game was already set at that point, but apparently Hellas were already on vacation mode, and Biraghi took advantage of the goalkeeper being out of the box, scored beyond midfield with a laser of a shot. Really good shot, honestly. 3-0 Fiorentina win on the road. They're big. They've been on a good form ever since the success in the European Conference League play. So good to see Fiorentina back in the winning column. Lazio hosting Sampdoria. We saw tough play. I really like the kits about Sampdoria with the orange kits. Did you like that, the orange kits?
Yeah, I've seen those before.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. The game was fairly back and forth. I thought Lazio would be, and they did have majority possession in the shots, but I thought this game was a lot closer than I was expecting. I think at least, certainly for Lazio as well. And took until the 80th minute where Luis Alberto scored a screamer of a goal, top of the box, goal of the weekend, and there. Lazio win 1-0 at home. Moving on to Tuesday's action. Roma at Cremonese. Everyone's talking about, hey, Roma's going to jump into third place after this game against Cremonese. Lowly Cremonese, who has no wins. Not so fast, my friend. Goal scoring started early. Ijuet scored in the 17th minute, give them the lead, and they had the lead for quite a while, honestly. Mourinho saw a red card. I missed the play. I had just happened to go out to get a drink, came right back, and I saw the red card, so I missed what happened. Did you catch what happened there with the red card? Obviously, he's upset with the officials.
It was around the time of the penalty. I missed it too. I had the game on in the background while I was at work, which, don't tell my boss that. But
nah.
I can't think of. I want to say it was around the time when the penalty happened.
Right.
So somewhere in the 83rd, 80 in that range.
No, I think he got a at halftime. Either way, he got a red card. Spinazzola ends up getting a goal in the 71st minute. Nice goal, honestly. They had a goal taken away before that. But 1-1 looks like Roma's maybe starting to make a mount a comeback. Penalty happens. I was a Finagian taken down to the bottom. I think it was a Finagian got taken down by the goalkeeper. Penalty called, and then Ciofani ended up scoring the goal, getting the win. Thoughts on the penalty there? Controversial play. Do you think it should have been a penalty there?
Yes. Patricio fouls him. Patricio fouls him. There's no debate, and Milanisti can be as pissed off as they want about it. But I mean, that's a penalty that would have been called on every team in this league. I mean, don't make something that isn't there. It was a penalty. I think there's this more of this anxiety over the humiliation of losing to a team that had not won a Serie A game all season. I think was kind of more is what probably motivated the Roma fans to get so angry on Twitter and things like that. So
yeah, and also worth noting, one of the assistants from Mourinho got sent off as well. I believe this is Cremonese's second win against Roma this season. I think they got the Coppa Italia win against them. Was it them or Napoli? I forget.
Beat them in the Coppa. Yeah, they beat Roma. They beat Roma twice.
So there you go. So 2-1 victory for Cremonese. Cremonese there does not allow Roma to get into third. So Milan hold that third position in the league.
If only they could play Roma every week.
Right. They'd be out of relegation. Finally, the last game of the match week was the Derby della Mole, biggest game of the weekend, at least in terms of entertainment. What we saw there really lived up finally to a derby that we saw. We saw the return of Paul Pogba. Say what you want about him, but he does return. And Juve start off the game now on the back foot. Caramo, 2 minutes in. I mean, like 1 minute and 37 seconds in the game. Caramo scores a goal. You love to see Torino get on the board because this means that they're into the game. Quadrado quickly responded maybe 10 minutes later. Wonderful goal by himself. He's a big game player. He always loves these derbies and always seems to score in these games. Sanabria had some opportunities, getting closer and closer. Finally, just before halftime, he gets a goal, makes it 2-1 for Torino. You're like, here we go. Torino's really came to play. Minutes later in stoppage time, Danilo scores a goal, 2-2 going into halftime. It's already a crazy game at this point. And then Bremer ends up getting the game winner in the 71st minute, gets a goal, celebrates with the goal, which it's funny to see when he scores against the former team. In a big game, the Rabiot in the 80th minute to round it out, 4-2 victory. Let's start there. I thought this was an impressive performance by Juventus when obviously Torino came to play in this game. I thought Vlahovic and Kostic, despite not scoring goals, they did very well to create plays, I think, for their teammates. I mean, thoughts on this game win by Juventus over Torino.
Yeah, I thought this was, I mean, I think when you look at how the team's set up, Juve lets you have the ball, and I think they're getting better and better in terms of hitting on the break. But then in this game, they took advantage of their set pieces, where two of these goals came from, the Danilo goal and the Bremer goal, and so you had that going. Angel Di Maria has been immense from a playmaking standpoint in a team that has not had a lot of playmakers this season. Cuadrado getting the opportunity, certainly more effective in a wingback role. Oddly enough, you're going to tell me that Juve scored 4 goals and not a single cross from Juan Cuadrado. That was interesting to see. Quite interested in this Enzo Baranecchia, who started the game, and I thought put a relatively impressive shift in.
Absolutely.
So there was that to talk about. Kostic doing his usual creating, and it was just the only if you want to criticize someone, criticize Vlahovic should have even scored a couple of goals in this game. So Juve looked very potent going forward, and I think that this kind of setup and the way they play, this is going to serve them well as they navigate through the Europa League. We talked about this. They need that to be an all-in. They need that to be an all-in. They need that to be with right now with this points penalty. I don't think they're going to be able to win the appeal on this. So they're going to need that competition, but they've worked their way back into 7th, so they're sitting in a European place, technically speaking, too. But they're actually, since that penalty got handed down, you can argue that Juventus is playing some of the best football in Italy.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. If if Juventus find a way to make it into the top 4, is that good or bad for the league? With the 15-point deduction. I say, and let you think about that. I say it's arguably bad for the league because a team gets penalized for being, doing what they did, and it's still find a way to make it in the top 4 when this was supposed to be the year that they struggled, and we had all these teams that are supposed to be really good. The 2 Roman clubs, the 2 Milanisti clubs, Napoli, Atalanta, and they find a way to make the top 4. Like, I don't know if that's good for the league. From the outside perspective, from us, we the Serie A community understands it, but I mean, from the outside optics looking in, they're like, look, they got deducted in this league, and they still find a way in the top 4. Like, this is a joke league. That's what I think. I mean, as a community Serie A, I don't think that's what we're going to think, but from the outside looking in, those who don't know the game are going to look at it that way, in my opinion.
I don't know. I don't know if you can say if it's good or good for the league or if it's bad for the league. What I will tell you is that it is a massive indictment on the teams that end up finishing 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
That and right now we're looking at the Roman clubs being those teams. We're looking at Atalanta being one of those teams.
Yeah.
That they were basically helped here by Juventus's misgivings, off the pitch and being penalized for it. And they had every opportunity to be that 4th team for the Champions League next season, and they couldn't seize it. And they allowed Juventus to get back into this thing and take it from them. So I think it would actually be a pretty fascinating story. I think that it would create a whole new wave, I guess, would be the best description of Juventus fatigue among Serie A fans. To have Juventus Twitter coming out and, now pounding their chest over this accomplishment and things like that. That's the only thing that I would be weirded out by. Whether it's good for the league or bad for the league that Juventus rally to finish 4th, I don't really know. I just would say it's an indictment on the teams that can't grab that 4th spot when they had such an advantage to do so.
You know who else might not like it? Are the Allegri out camp, because if they miss Champions League, it's like, hey, get him out of here. But if he makes Champions League somehow, he's gonna stay, unless he decides he wants to move on. He'll probably stay. And you're gonna be much harder to get rid of him, especially with 15-point deduction, and you still find a way to make Champions League. Like that'd be pretty damn impressive, honestly. If you're looking at it from that perspective.
Sure, but what would you rather? I mean, and then let's piggyback what Fitcom is saying here about wanting teams that go to the Champions League being ambitious. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a Juventus that's in the form that they're in right now, or would you rather have a Lazio that's okay? They get there on their merit, but they're middling at best when they get to European competition. They don't have the depth. They don't have the resources to reload the team to be able to compete, or a Roma who will suddenly flake on you. I mean, that's a legitimate question to ask. I mean, in terms of ambition, Juventus are going to be, better equipped for that than the Roman clubs at this point.
Yeah, if you could guarantee me that both Roman clubs will play at their absolute peak best when they're in Champions League, yeah.
But you can't guarantee. You can't guarantee that. You
can't guarantee it. Maybe Roma because they have Mourinho and they won a Europa League, or they won Europa League or Conference League, excuse me. But Lazio, they haven't proven it yet. Roma has certainly proven this season. So I agree with you. I think you'd probably want Juventus, especially in this kind of form, especially with the manager that they have and the experience that they have. They're probably better suited. No, they're not probably. They're definitely better suited to be more ambitious in the Champions League than said Roman clubs and Atalanta as well. Maybe the only teams that you can't say that with are the two Milanese clubs and Napoli. So, I would then think Juventus should be in the Champions League based on that. But will they make it? We'll see. Doubtful.
Okay, so it's a loss for Roma, but I think there's a huge encouragement that came from this game, and that's Leonardo Spinazzola. Back-to-back, very good games. Was very good in the second leg against Salzburg, 2 assists, and now comes in and scores a goal against Cremonese. I think we're, and this is, I can't remember who said it in the chat, but it's good for Serie and good for Italy when Leonardo Spinazzola can get back to his best. And I'm very, very encouraged after the 2 performances here. So so Roma fans are obviously angry about the loss. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of you have Spinazzola back in the fold and looking like he's working his way back to playing at a very high level, which is encouraging to see.
Yeah, I agree. It's a strong positive there to have a guy like Spinazzola back in your lineup, back in your arsenal, and be able to go down the stretch here where really your main job is to beat your rivals. If you can beat your rivals, you're in the top 4, you're in Champions League. And that should be motivation enough to go down the stretch for both the fans and the players. And having a guy like Spinazzola playing when he's at his best, we saw what he did for the Azzurri during their title run in the Euros. He is one of the best left backs in the league when he's on. So good to see him back healthy. Hopefully he stays healthy and continues to produce for this team. And Roma can only do better when he's on the pitch and playing well. So it's absolutely got to take this with a positive.
Yep. But man, Cremonese, I mean, I would have hated to see them go the whole season without a win. I mean, that would have stunk. And to see the emotions from the fans after the game, the players. I think Giovanni almost broke down after the game. How heavy were his feet on that penalty, by the way? You think, it's just one of those things. But I think in the end, they end up going down. I still don't think they have the tools to be able to compete. I get what Ballardini's trying to do and how he's trying to play. We know what Ballardini's style is, and it's pretty much the only choice for Cremonese if they want any hope. Yeah. But in the meantime, we can enjoy what they accomplished here. They may go down, but they're going to go down saying, hey, we beat one of the best teams in Italy during the season. They're going to have, and the Cremonese fans in particular are going to have that memory to hang on to for a long time.
Yep, agreed.
We should talk about Monday's games because Conference League Fiorentina showed up at the Bentegodi.
They did, and they got a result, which, like I said, We had seen up until the Europa League Conference League games that started, they had looked so bad in Serie A, and then finally started getting some victories here. They played well in the Conference League, and they built that into the Monday game. And Fiorentina really did well. Started out great. Anytime you play a game, you score early, that's going to do the world of confidence for you. Anthony Barak, who's been quietly a really strong player for them this season, scored the opening goal. Cabral scoring a goal, which he doesn't seem to do that often too, and it's the possession, the style of play, everything seems to be going well at the moment. And again, it's confidence that they gained from the European play, and it's finally you get to see it spill over into the Serie A. Whatever Vincenzo Italiano's been doing here in the last few weeks, it's really working at the moment, and hopefully he can continue riding that, keeping the team in obviously a European hunt, on top of their actually games in the Conference League. So you love seeing Fiorentina win. It's always hard watching a team like this, a talented team like this, struggle mightily in the league as they have been. Now they finally got this turned around, and happy to see this happen. And obviously, when you get goals like Baragi's goal from distance and Steph Curry range, right? It's good to see. It's happy times, I think, for the league when they score and they do well.
I will say this. I think that Verona's manager got this wrong, playing Kevin Lasagna to start the game instead of playing Gajic.
Yeah,
Gajic to me is the better striker.
And he missed some sitters too. My goodness.
Yeah, he had some great chances when he came on. He had some great chances and nearly brought Hellas Verona back into the game. I really was stumped by that because, watching this game, watching Hellas Verona, they're building the attack. I mean, the change in formation and some of the things that they've done, has really elevated the play of Darko Lazovic. We talked about Ngonje being a good player that has come over, and it was a nice find by Hellas Verona. But it got to them, and then everything stopped because Lasagna was pretty much nowhere to be found. He got marked out of the game by the combination. I'm looking at the wrong game. I'm already on the Lazio game. By Lucas Martinez and Igor Julio. Yeah. And I think Lasagna only had the one shot. He had a couple of other shots, but he had the best chance he had was the one that the long ball from Davidovic.
Yeah.
That didn't even come close. So I wonder if this game would have been a little bit different if Gajic played from the start. I thought that the way Fiorentina set up, they looked very lively. And I think we're learning what a nice fit Rolando Mondragra is in this team too. Taking the corner and on the goal for Cabral, dictating things through the midfield, his passing vision, and the characteristics. I think that this is a nice complement to Amrabat for as long as they're going to have Amrabat. And then the Biraghi goal. I mean, you don't need an endorsement from me. It's the goal of the week. Now in the conversation for goal of the season. And I think we got a couple in there that we got to talk about when we get to the end. But that was something for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, when you need a game and you need to start crawling out, I mean, I think that is it Zaffaroni? Is that his last name? Zaffaroni? The Hellas Verona coach. I think he whiffed when they needed a big performance. They needed the right lineup, and I think a surefire way to lose this game was starting Kevin Lasagna up front. He's just not the guy, and even when he was the guy that he was average.
Yeah, I think also going back to your Mondragora comments, I think it's good to see him finally start to play how we thought. Like when we first heard that he was going to Fiorentina, we're like, this is a great this is great chemistry potentially. It's a great fit. This should work out really well. And it just took him such a long time. And obviously maybe injuries and all that stuff kind of plays into it and trying to get acclimated to new surroundings. But now we're seeing that in the last few games, he's playing a lot better, and he's put in a position where he can succeed. And obviously it helps when the rest of the team is doing well. And so having a guy like Mondragora on the team is only going to boost your chances of getting a result in these games. And obviously we saw that in this game with his set piece ability and the vision that he talked about. So yeah, it's good to see because guys like he and Orsolini, who had so much hype since they were youngsters, took a while to get their foot in the ground and get going. We're seeing Orsolini finally getting really hot now, and Drago finally getting hopefully a home here in Fiorentina, because both those guys seem to be bouncing around all over their careers as a youngster. So hopefully now, as they're a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, they can kind of use that to kind of apply their trade at one location and really build something special for themselves.
Wonderful goal from Luis Alberto for Lazio. Yeah. Maybe spared them some blushes. They really controlled this game, generated a lot of chances. Interestingly enough, Sampdoria had a couple of opportunities there. Provedel was called on to make some saves. I can't remember where they came from. I thought Lammers had one of them.
Yeah, Gabbiadini, I think, had another. One other I remember. But yeah, Provedel, he's been a quietly sneaky fantastic pickup for Lazio. Everyone thought I forgot the other guy's name now who they brought in. They thought it was going to be the starter. And we saw last year, we saw the year before, Provedel, when he was with Spezia, he was a fantastic keeper, faced a million shots, but he was really making saves. And all we said is that he needs to go to a pretty decent team, a good team, and he'll show his skills. And what we've seen with Lazio, he took over this number one position and really made it his own. And so Lazio now have no worries in the back, and they can focus more on defense and the rest of their game. Their attack is just wonderful to watch. Like you said, they kind of own possession. Immobile missing a couple of sitters in this game, but it's that play that they have, the Maurizio style attack where they move the ball around, quick passing, looking for the balls over the top. It's nice to see. It's aesthetically pleasing for sure, but they're not finishing their chances. And like you said, had Luis Alberto not scored that goal, you're looking at an embarrassing 0-0 draw in a game that you dominate. And so Luis Alberto, this is a reminiscent goal we saw when he scored against Inter, I believe, where he scored from almost exact same spot. And so Luis Alberto, good to see him scoring some goals and just carrying the team at times. It seems like with his goals that he scores, big goals that he scores in some of these games. And so, yeah, it's a interesting game. Lazio, like some of these teams that we saw this weekend that didn't capitalize on their chances. Fortunately for them, Luis Alberto did, and they get away with the 3 important points. I think for sure.
Jesse Rodriguez plays for Sampdoria now, because I'm like trying to figure out who on this Sampdoria team can unlock anybody anymore, and they're now desperate enough to bring. Isn't he the guy that like his fiance nearly ran over him or ran over him or?
Oh, maybe I don't know.
Something like that. I was reading about that a long time ago. Some crazy shit, and and now he's in Serie A. So it's but anyway, I digress. But that's the one thing. And yeah, Anthony says yes, that's the one. It's okay. So here's the problem for me with Sampdoria. I mean, I think their work rate, I think their commitment, and they are playing for Stankovic. That I see. I mean, it's evident to me. The problem is that who unlocks the opponent on this team? Yeah. They've got serviceable guys up front with Gabbiadini and Lammers, but where's the creativity and where's the pace? I mean, where's the guy that can run and can get behind it, that can go at people? Sampdoria doesn't have a single player like that. The closest they can get is Rodriguez or even Valerio Vere, but Vere's more of a technician. I mean, it's just, I still think Sampdoria is a bit of a brand name in Serie A. I mean, I remember the teams of the early 90s that Vialli played for and David Platt was on and things like that. It's just kind of to see what a team that I consider one of the brand names of Serie A going down kind of.
Eventually, I mean, a guy, he's a little bit older now. He's 31. Juricic, he's a player who could unlock a team. He hasn't found it yet. He hasn't really got his footing yet with Sampdoria, and so that's a guy that I thought was going to come in and be able to be that playmaker type to kind of feed some of these other guys. You got Pussetto as well as another guy who has that potential, but it seems to be the Gabbiadinis of the world that still control this team. Sabiri has been in and out. As well.
It was Sabiri. Sabiri's a good technical player too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. We saw that at the World Cup. But I mean, the question is who is going to be the one who's going to be unlock them and be the playmaker. And
right.
take the reins, and no one has done it just yet. Unfortunately, the time is running out.
Goals of the week.
Goals of the week.
And Biragi's the goal of the week.
Yeah. My top 5. It wasn't really a goal, his goal, but I counted Teo Hernandez. That was a fantastic.
Come on, that's an own goal. It doesn't count.
It wouldn't happen if he didn't shoot. So that's mine. Number 4, Castanos. I thought his goal was really nice, really well taken by him. His teammate Koulibaly, fantastic strike. Number 3 for me. Top corner, really well placed. Orsolini, that's number 2 for me. That was a great counter goal, game-winning goal against Inter. Took that super well against Onana, who's been really hot as of late. And so to beat a keeper like him is impressive. And so, yeah, that's number 2. And obviously, Baragi's number 1. So,
yeah. Number 5 for me is going to be I never make a penalty a goal of the week candidate, but I'm going to just go with Daniel Ciofani's penalty at number 5. The significance of it, giving Cremonese their first win in Serie A in 24 tries. At number 4, I will go with the Koulibaly goal, curler against Monza. At number 3, I'm going to go with Sajut from Cremonese. I didn't think I'd go all season putting 2 Cremonese goals in the top 5 for goals of the week. But here we are. Number 2, Luis Alberto's winner, just really well taken. First touch, just acting quickly, striking the ball with power. And scoring there, and then Biragi, number 1. It's going to be number 1 across the board. No one is going to debate that. But there's at least 3 goals in there that could have been a goal of the week in any other week. Yeah. So it just happened. You didn't score from midfield like Biragi did, and catch the Hellas Verona team napping in the process. So let's talk. Let's move the conversation to Europe here, Richard. Europa League. And we can also preview Tottenham Milan also, which takes place next Wednesday. But let's start with the Europa League draw. Juventus will play Freiburg. Roma will play Real Sociedad. You're familiar with Freiburg. I know a little bit about Freiburg. I know a little bit of an Italian international that goes by the name of Vincenzo Grifo, who's probably going to be excited about this opportunity. But he's not the only guy there. I look at Freiburg's team. Japanese international Ritsu Don is on that team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Very, very talented player. And let me just pop through some of these other guys because I was saving this with some of the names. Just players you should probably be concerned about when you take a look at this team. Gregoric up front has been decent on the goal front. Ronald Salai, the Hungarian international, Grifo, and then you've got Matthias Ginter, Christian Gunter, guys that are solid there. And then in the goalkeeping is okay. Flecken's okay, but doesn't scare you. But you've seen Freiburg more than the rest of us have. So talk about what Juventus has to look forward to.
This team is legit. They're challenging for the top 4 in the Bundesliga, and they're not too far from the top of the league. Honestly, this is a team that's a little engine that could. With Strike is their manager. He's a fantastic, insane manager. Kind of what you think of the owner of Sampdoria is what you kind of think of like the manager of Freiburg, and not the looks, just the craziness of they are. But people love the manager anyway. But beside the point, Freiburg are tough. They're difficult. They're difficult away and especially at home. And this is going to be a difficult out for Juventus. Based on current form, this does serve Juventus well, but they cannot overlook Freiburg. Freiburg is a good team. This is gonna be a tight encounter. This is absolutely gonna be a tight encounter. Much more difficult than Nantes was for Juventus. Juventus, I think, need to come away with a good victory at home to start the first leg, because the second leg at Freiburg will be difficult. I guarantee it, especially with a guy like Vincenzo Grifo and Don, who are out there who could unlock defenses and score goals. So you got to be wary of that. So do they have some world beaters and names? No. I mean, outside of Vincenzo Grifo, nobody's really going to know one of these guys, right? Unless you really follow deeply like we do. But they're a team not to be taken lightly. They are very, very good. They're structured, they're disciplined, and they're quick. They're deceptively quick. So, I mean, Gregoric is a little bit slow on the foot, but he's a guy who seems to struggle a lot, and then all of a sudden you put him on a team like this and he scores goals. He's got 8 goals when he probably had 8 goals in like 3 years before. So, I mean, he's turned it around. A lot of these guys are turning around this season and the way they're playing, and they're just fun team to watch. So look out if you're Juventus.
I do think Juventus will still edge this. It's going to be very, very difficult. I think they have slightly more resources than Freiburg do to go through. But I do take Freiburg seriously as a threat to Juventus's prospects in this competition. No doubt about it. But I think in the end, Grifo is a guy that certainly will play with a lot of motivation, getting a chance to play against an Italian side. Mm-hmm. Gregoric is a decent striker for them, but not someone that I think Juventus's defenders are going to be afraid of. It's just having to be wary of some of the other threats that have come from different positions. Guys like Ginter, with his ability to come forward and provide crosses, and then Ritsu Don, who can run forever, really. I think that those to me are the danger men in this Freiburg setup. But in the end, I think that Juventus will just ever so slightly edge this. I think, at home, they win 2-1. They go to Germany, score draw, 1-1, something like that. Juve go through 3-2 on aggregate. Can you see that?
I can see that for sure. But at the moment, despite Juventus's form, I kind of am edging Freiburg to win this late at their home.
Okay.
I hope I'm wrong. I love to see all the Italian teams go deep into their respective tournaments. I'm not quite sold on, despite Juventus looks really good at the moment, I'm not convinced on their European play just yet, even though that was a massive performance against Nantes, 3-0 victory there on the road. So I shouldn't discount them, right? And Allegri, but I've got this feeling like that Freiburg's going to pull something out of their ass in the second leg. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong.
Yep. Roma and Real Sociedad. This is going to be a rock fight over 180 minutes. Real Sociedad's third in La Liga, but they're third with a goal difference of 9 through 23 games. They've scored 32 and they've conceded 23. They don't score a lot. But they also defend reasonably well. Roma really don't score a lot, and they also defend reasonably well. So something's got to give here. It wouldn't shock me over the course of 180 minutes that only one goal gets scored. I think Real Sociedad go through. I just think they're the slightly stronger team here in the grand scheme of things. I don't know where you're at on this. Guys, you got to be careful with when it comes to Real Sociedad. Brais Mendes, just about everything goes through him in the attack through the midfield. Alexander Sorloth is the striker they're going to be looking to for goals. And then Takefusa Kubo might be having one of his better seasons in La Liga. And I can't remember where he played prior to Real Sociedad. He was on one of the smaller La Liga clubs, but he has plied his trade there all this time. They get some good midfield steel from Mikel Merino, but Merino is also capable of creating chances from the midfield, whether deep lying or getting close to the attackers in the top of the box. So those are some things you got to look out for. And then you've got Mikel Oyarzabal in there too. So longtime player there. And then 37-year-old going on 75, David Silva's in the mix too, still amazingly over there. Yeah. So just some of the names to just have yourself, acquainted with when it comes to Real Sociedad. Like I said, 180-minute rock fight between these two teams, given their styles. I may be being a little exaggerating, just saying one goal over 180 minutes, but I'll have Real Sociedad knocking Roma out 2-1 on aggregate.
Yeah, I'm with you on the rock fight. I think 3 goals, maybe over 2 legs here, it's not going to be much goal scoring here. I'm with you, though, and I hate to say this for Serie A teams. I think Real Sociedad is just slightly better than Roma, and I think they, like I said, yeah, David Silva is 37 years old, but look at Luka Modric did at 37 years old, right? David Silva is still class. He still has the talent. We got to be careful of him. What did Pirlo do in his, his ripe old age, 37? He was still doing things, right? You got to be worried, guys like this. But we've seen Real Sociedad in these tournaments over the last few years, and they're just something about them. They make it difficult for everybody they play, and it's just that La Liga teams in general play teams difficult in Europe. They always do. And as much as I want to see Roma and Juventus go through, I think Real Sociedad is just going to edge them ever so slightly in the rock fight that you mentioned. I hope we're wrong, but again, we'll see. We'll see how this works out. But both teams, both Serie A clubs need to come out fighting and get some goals in this first game if they want to have any chance of progressing out of this round.
Yep. Let's go to the Conference League matchups. We'll start with Fiorentina. They get Sivasspor from the Turkish League. Sivasspor is having a bit of a struggle in the Turkish League. They're in 13th. Players to watch in this one here. Diaz Saba is among their leaders in goals. Max Gradel, a very, very old man in their midfield. He's been everywhere, hasn't he? Throughout his career, but he's in this mix as well. Those are two guys, at least from the creative standpoint. Mustafa Yadabari plays up front for them. Ahmed Musa they just brought over, and I can't remember the club that he came from. Clinton Njai, Cameroon international, also another attacking option for them in that team. People might remember Isaac Chofi from Ghana's World Cup team.
Yep.
He's on this team as well. But I mean, if Fiorentina can flash the form that they have in the last couple of games, they get through this comfortably, in my opinion, and have an easy path here to the last 8. I don't, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like we don't know what Fiorentina is going to show up. If they've been playing like they've been playing lately, yeah, it should be smooth sailing for them. Prior to this run, they had played piss poor, and so it's. I'm gonna go with the hot hand right now, and I think Fiorentina should win this fairly comfortably. It's always tough to go to Turkey to play, obviously, but I think Fiorentina should have enough to do based on current form to get the job done, and hopefully they can carry this on both in Conference League and in the Serie A. So we'll see, but I hope Fiorentina go through easily.
Yep. So, and then Lazio gets AZ Alkmaar. AZ Alkmaar is third in the Eredivisie, 5 points behind league-leading PSV. Free scoring, too, 49 goals and 23. Who's not free scoring in the Eredivisie, though? But led by Vangelis Pavlidis and Jens Odgaard. Those are the guys that are kind of doing the scoring for them this season. Sven Minans, the midfielder who kind of provides the creativity for them. They also get play from Yukinari Sugawara as a defender. So names we're not familiar with, but 23 games in the Eredivisie and they've scored 49 goals. Lazio better be ready for what's coming.
Yeah, you can't take AZ Alkmaar lightly for sure because obviously they have the power to score goals. But what we've seen, at least from them in Conference League alone, is that up and down play, like they give up goals in every game. They haven't had any shutouts, so they can be had. And I think if Lazio can take their chances well and play solid defensively, Provedel can stand on his head as he'll need to at times. I think Lazio has a really good chance of getting out of this group. I haven't been overly impressed with AZ Alkmaar's look really well in the league, but in European play, they've looked vulnerable. They haven't looked like super comfortable in their victories, and so not that Lazio has by any stretch either, right? But I have confidence that hopefully Maurizio Sarri can figure this out, get his team to get a victory. It'll be close. I don't think it'll be as comfortable victory as the Fiorentina leg over there, but I think Lazio should be able to beat AZ Alkmaar based on talent alone. But it's going to be hard because, like I said, there is always that if you're sleeping, they will catch you and they will score goals. So you have to be wary of that, especially when you go to Netherlands, right? Netherlands, and most of these places are difficult to play in Europe, especially these perennial places like Turkey and the Netherlands and some of these Eastern European places. They're also difficult to go to. So yeah, let's see. But I have confidence in Lazio and Fiorentina in this one.
Yep. Okay. So I've got Juve, Fiorentina, and Lazio going through. You just have Fiorentina and Lazio going through.
Correct.
We both think Roma go out to Real Sociedad.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's fair. And then finally, we've got Milan now traveling to Tottenham Hotspur. I believe that is Wednesday, a week from today.
Yes.
I think it's a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Milan hold a 1-0 advantage. We have a very solid understanding of what's going to be out there. They'll have Maignan back. Does Tottenham have Lloris back?
I heard rumors that they will be, but I haven't confirmed that.
Okay. And they've got Son. It's. I think the obvious battle is okay. You're going to have to know where Harry Kane is all the time, but with his movement and some of the things that he does, it's something that I think that Tomori, Chow, and Kalulu can cope with. The concerns are the runs that are going to come through the players in support of Kane, Son, and then Kulishevsky or Richarlison. I think those are dangerous positions for Milan to cope with, to figure out how to defend. I don't know if that back three can play them straight man for man. Conte on the bench means we aren't losing. Okay. That's ambitious. But I think that's key in how they cope with that and how they figure that out. I mean, and that's the other question. Do you take a two-man center midfield to London, the way that Milan have been doing in this formation, or do you figure something out where you bog down the midfield and then you leave it to Leao and Giroud up front on the break? That's going to be interesting to see how Pioli approaches this. I ultimately think he doesn't change a thing. I think you see Salamakers at the right wing back position to deal with Perisic. He did a very good job against him in the first leg. Perisic started to get his a little bit more, as the game wore on, but overall it was a solid job. And then over on the other side, is if I believe Royal's fit against Teo. I think the player that can win that can go a long way in helping determine Milan. I think that Milan's best suited to, I don't think they play as high a line against Atalanta. I think they drop off just a little bit because I'm concerned about maybe some of the up back through stuff and some of the stuff that Son can do with some blindside runs and things like that. So drop off and see it all in front of you, and then take your chances on the counter, because one thing I love on the counter for Milan is Leao on that left-hand side with Christian Romero, who's a foul waiting to happen. The other thing, and a yellow card waiting to happen. The other thing here is I believe it's a Dyer that's out for this second leg through suspension. Yes. Yeah. So there's going to be a relative change here. You're going to probably see Romero, Longley, Davies across that back three. So that's a combination of guys that haven't really played together either. So there's going to be some opportunities. I think Milan will snatch a goal here. And I think at the end of the first leg, I said score draw for the second leg 1-1. Milan go through 2-1 on aggregate. I'm going to stick with that. Hard with the way this defense is playing, hard to say that they're going to concede a goal. But it's an away fixture in Europe. Things just go a little bit differently. So I'll take 1-1 and run with it and see Milan into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, I like that scoreline. I do think, we've seen crazy things in Europe all the time, especially at England on second legs, and somehow goals always seem to happen. But I like the shot. I think, it's like Anthony says, if Milan can score early, even if they don't score early, I think they can score in this game. I do like the shot of 1-1 at minimum for Milan. I'm confident in the defense. I think Benacer is supposed to be back as well. Maybe I gotta check the confirmation on that, but I heard that he might be back as well with Magnon. That's a boost to have Magnon. And if you can get Benacer in there as well, that's even better. I think I agree with you. I think Pioli doesn't change the damn thing. I think the only thing he may change is what we saw in this last game is that Teo Hernandez is a little bit shaded into the middle to help clog that middle, and also in the attack kind of exploit some things. It'll help also free up Leao and Giroud. I say don't change the thing. I mean, you got the three guys in the back who you need to have the pace here, guys. All three of the guys that played this past weekend. They should do well. It's gonna be difficult, obviously, against the talent that Tottenham have in attack. But like you said, the runners that come in from behind them is what you have to worry about. And I think if Benacer's in there, whomever's in there, Tonali or even Krunic, it doesn't matter. They're gonna have to just be wary of that. And if you can get even Leao and Salamakers will definitely be back. Or Giroud will probably try to help back as well, especially if they have a lead. If it's a whole buy-in for the Milan defense, they should get the job done. Doesn't mean doesn't mean get the shutout. They should get the job done. And what we saw this weekend was encouraging because Magnon came back and it seemed like everybody's talent level lifted all of a sudden out of nowhere. And so if they continue that into the league, they play the way they've been playing, and not kind of be too conservative. We see Pioli in the past gone a little too conservative. If he stays his course, Milan should move on. And I'm confident that this defense is going to be hard to beat. But the main area for me, my concern is the same with you, is that midfield, the runners that come in, Richarlison or some of these other guys that come in midfield. They had some youngsters play that did well for being youngsters for Tottenham, and I think
Sure.
be wary of them. But I like Milan's chances for sure going through, and I'm going to say they go through.
Yeah. So we think that they'll go through, and I think we can spend next week talking about Inter and Napoli's second legs.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, looking forward to all of this here coming up in a week's time. The stadium talk in Milan for both teams. Anthony had a question about it. At this point, until Paolo Maldini or somebody in Milan has a golden shovel and there's a ceremonial dig, I can't even talk about this. I mean, it's just been getting dragged on and dragged on. They're now to the point where they won't even reveal to the mayor of Milan where they plan to want to have their new stadium. Some people think that Milan still want theirs in the metropolitan Milan area, where Inter wants it, maybe a little bit further away. There's some speculation about that. And like I said, until there's a golden shovel digging into the dirt for the ceremony, I'm not buying anything I read about this.
Yeah, no, I'm holding my breath. I am slightly more optimistic with Jerry Cardinal just because of his track record. He tends to stick to his word for the most part in terms of when they try to be optimistic with his teams. He really wants his team to get to that next level of financial stability. So I tend to believe him more than past predecessors. But like you, until I see that shovel, until I see the announcement, I'm not going to buy it. But I like the decision. The main talking point is like, should Inter and Milan stay together and continue this great partnership? Is like, you could, but it's about business. It's about money, and I think they're better suited to have their own stadium and make their own money. Especially not with the city of Milan and being involved and where they have to share the funds, right? That's been a pain in the ass for both Inter and Milan, and so they can get out of that. They can hold the cards away from the mayor for as long as they can and say, "Yeah, we're gonna dig it over here starting tomorrow," or something.
Yep.
But until it happens, I'm gonna hold and wait. But I am slightly more optimistic now that Jerry Cardinal is talking about this versus anybody else.
Yep, I agree. All right. Well, we'll just have to time will just have to be our guide here on this one. So, I mean, I know, Anthony, you had a question for us about it. I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at with it. Store and restaurant space to make money 12 months out of the year, exactly. So, but yeah, it is the best decision for them to have their own stadium. I mean, it's the best way right now for Serie to evolve, is for these clubs to start getting active and building their own stadiums. So let's hope that it happens. So, all right. And now, after all of that, it's time for this edition of the world's most popular hashtag game, Who Won Calcio Twitter.
All right. We are off, and let me find my tab. There we are. All right. So, Napolinissimo says, minute 90 tomorrow, Nantes 1, Juventus 0. This is obviously before the game. And it's Quadrado taking a free kick.
That's accurate.
Yeah, it's fairly accurate, yeah. Juventus did win the game, but that didn't actually happen. So good for Juventus, I guess.
Well, our friend Johnny over at the Calcio guys nominated Tony Malachi 7. Pogba takes more than 5 steps.
Well, they're right. That's good. All right. Francesco Calcio _ Gasparini had a pretty good Panini throwing aim. And so if you didn't catch this, some guy pulled up to Gasparini, and Gasparini didn't like what he had to say. So watch the video. Oh, my gosh.
So Gasparini threw that at the driver?
Yeah, and he got it in the car, and then tried to throw it back at him.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. At crazy _ Milanista. There's a guilt actually that comes over me with reading this just based on it, but I'm going to read it anyway. Mbappe begging to join Milan while Eriksen had to fake a heart attack to escape from Inter.
Oh,
we are not the same.
Oh my gosh. Oh, poor Eriksen. Eriksen.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my Lord.
All right.
I want to show you. Hold on here. I think the response afterward. At Stinker Jenny replied to him, "You having a good tweet in the big 2023," and it was Zlatan coming on.
Oh yeah, that's good.
So a little bonus going with that one.
That's funny. That's a good one. That's a good one. All right. Rounding out the nominations this week, Napoli Sansone says, "You kept saying we're not your rivals. We agree. Plus 18. Enjoy." Big lead for Napoli in the table here. It's not even close at the moment. It is a five-way horse for second place, but no one's even close to Napoli.
What's a five-way horse?
That's what we can afford here where I am in Maryland, all right? We can't afford it. Just go with it, Frank. Just go with it.
You meant to say five-horse race, I think.
I don't know anymore, man. I don't know anymore. I just work here. Crazy man. Milanista? Are we thinking that?
Crazy Milanista wins for me. That was great.
Yeah, that's
so
funny.
I'll go ahead and name him the winner.
No five-way horse there.
Yeah, it was a five-way horse for this. Only 5 entries.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, I'm going to enter this while you say something to the people here.
If you're listening along, watching along right now, if you haven't subscribed yet to the YouTube page, please do so. And then leave a like on the video, be much appreciated. We have a website, Sitdown.com. We're going to try to add some more content in there, and then as well also add some videos to our YouTube page. Make sure you follow us along and everywhere on social media to get the latest information from Serie. And nothing really. I mean, we got some big games coming up this weekend. Really big games here. Let me get my Serie website going here. Napoli Lazio is starting things off on Friday. It's a big game there. Let's see obviously Napoli are doing really well. Let's see what Lazio can do. Lazio have had some big games against big teams recently. Looking also at the schedule, we had Fiorentina Milan is a big game. Atalanta Udinese could be very enticing there. Roma Juventus, that's a game that could be interesting to score. We saw the first time they played there. How that results went there, and then don't discount Torino Bologna. I'm gonna say that should be a quietly sneakily good game. But yeah, some big games coming up this weekend, and so obviously kicking things off on Friday. Thoughts on Napoli seem to be getting a lot of Friday games lately, and I understand that for the Champions League, but just not. It's unique seeing the top team in the league just all by themselves to play for playing a game. So I like it.
I don't hate the idea. It's actually interesting. Lazio are going to play AZ Alkmaar on Tuesday on the 7th, so that's part of it.
Sure.
And I don't know if there's some kind of scheduling thing going on where they have to do that. But that's going to be 12:45 Eastern, 11:45 Central. So that's worth mentioning, and that's probably part of why this game got put on Friday also. But yeah, I mean, I think making Napoli a spotlight game at this point makes a lot of sense. Milan at Fiorentina is very, very interesting. How do Milan cope with Leao out? Be interesting to see what Pioli conjures up for that game. And then Roma and Juventus on Sunday. To your point, big game for both teams. Juventus with a chance to further close the gap on the teams that are in front of them if they are going to claw back into top four consideration, even with this penalty. I know you're nodding your head. I actually think it would be a heck of an achievement.
For sure. I just think it's crazy. I just think it's crazy that this could possibly happen.
Yep.
There's a better chance of Juventus making a top four than anybody else catching Napoli.
Yep. So definitely much to get excited about. So hope you guys all enjoy the games coming up this weekend. We will put a bow on this edition of Serie A Sit Down. You can find me at FTC_21. You can find Richard at R_KHARMAN. Serie A Sit Down. We have our own channel on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, We also on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there's podcasts, there's Serie A Sit Down. Want to follow us on the socials at Serie A Sit Down is the handle on Twitter and on Instagram. Go check us out there. Please follow us. Followers help. And then also any questions, comments, any observations you're seeing that you think we should mention on a future podcast, please don't be afraid to speak your voice. We don't rip on people. Well, I do on my own personal page. I go after people, but that's about it. So Richard's too nice to do that. I had a word for the Pioli out guys again last week after they beat Atalanta. So
Right
on. I just said, you guys have been awfully quiet lately. But anyway, also Facebook, we have a page there, and then again the website, which we will start getting aggressive with populating a little more content there as we go. So check out everything on those fronts. And once again, here on the YouTube channel, drop a like, please. Please subscribe, and then hit that notification bell.
Chat.
So that,
thank you, chat. You guys are awesome, as always.
What am I doing? I'm not acknowledging the chat. Chat, you guys have been beautiful. Thank you guys so much. So that does it for us. For Richard, I'm Frank, and as always, tell your paisans about us. Ciao.